It is 1:08 a.m. The Arabian Sea at this hour is a surface that conceals more than it reveals. Above the waterline, the strike group moves in its practiced geometry, carrier at center, destroyers on the cardinal points, the cruiser holding its station 3 miles to the northeast, the entire formation producing a radar picture that any adversary within range can see and measure and calculate against. Below the waterline, there is a different world. A world without light, without horizon, without the reference points that human beings evolved to navigate by. A world where distance is measured in time and sound, where the geometry of a tactical situation is assembled not from radar returns, but from the accumulated patience of sonar operators who have learned to listen to the ocean the way a physician listens to a chest. The Arabian Sea at 1:08 a.m. is not quiet below the surface. It never is. The biological noise layer, the clicking of shrimp, the low-frequency signaling of large marine animals, the distant machinery noise of commercial shipping lanes 40 miles to the south, produces a background that the sonar operators aboard the strike group have been filtering for 18 hours. Filtering is not the right word. The operators do not remove the noise. They learn its texture, its rhythm, its character, until anything that does not belong to that texture registers not as an alarm but as a wrongness, a feeling, a professional instinct that is actually pattern recognition operating faster than conscious thought. At 1:08 a.m., the towed array sonar operator aboard the lead destroyer reports a contact. He does not report it loudly. He reports it in the specific, level tone of a professional who has been trained to distinguish between the physical sensation of certainty and the professional requirement of measured language. The contact is a bearing line. A single line of bearing produced by the narrowband sonar processor, detecting a frequency component in the water that does not belong to the biological noise layer, does not belong to commercial shipping, does not belong to any of the known acoustic sources in the current tactical picture. The frequency is consistent with the machinery signature of a diesel-electric submarine. The bearing is 047 degrees. The contact is to the northeast. The contact is inside the strike group's outer ASW screen. The watch officer receives the report at 1:09 a.m. He does not immediately transmit it to the carrier's CIC. He waits 14 seconds in which the sonar operator refines the bearing, runs the signal through a second processing chain, and produces a frequency analysis that sharpens the contact from a possibility to a high-confidence detection. At 1:09:14 a.m., the watch officer transmits to the Lincoln's CIC. The message is 4 words and a bearing. 4 words are sufficient. The CIC understands immediately. The Virginia-class attack submarine, running 180 meters below the surface, 3 nautical miles ahead of the carrier on the formation's northwest bearing, receives a data update through the tactical link at 1:09:31 a.m. The update contains the bearing from the destroyer's towed array. The submarine's fire control party begins building a target motion analysis solution. They have 1 line of bearing. 1 line of bearing is the beginning of a picture, not the picture itself. The submarine increases its own passive sonar sensitivity and begins the slow, patient geometry of figuring out what the contact is, where it is going, and how fast. At 1:11 a.m., a P-8A Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft operating at 22,000 feet drops its first sonobuoy field. The P-8A has been on station for 3 hours, running a barrier pattern 50 miles ahead of the strike group's track. The aircrew received the contact report 30 seconds after the CIC did. The sonobuoy field, 16 buoys deployed in a pattern designed to bracket the bearing line from the destroyer, hits the water and begins transmitting within 90 seconds. The P-8A's acoustic processor begins correlating the buoy returns with the destroyer's towed array data. At 1:14 a.m., the picture acquires geometry. The contact is not a single bearing line anymore. It is a solution. The target motion analysis, built from 3 separate acoustic sources over 6 minutes of careful computation, places the contact at approximately 11 nautical miles northeast of the carrier's current position, moving at 6 knots on a course of 228 degrees. Course 228 degrees. The carrier's current course is 241 degrees. The contact is not running away from the strike group. It is not transiting on unrelated business. It is on a course that will bring it in approximately 90 minutes at current relative speeds to a position directly ahead of the carrier's track, a firing position for a submarine that carries 53 to 65 centimeter heavyweight torpedoes. This is an Iranian Kilo-class submarine. The Tarek, or the USS, or the Noor, one of the three hulls that Iran has operated in the Arabian Sea, boats that intelligence had assessed as operating from Bandar Abbas and whose precise locations had been, until this moment, uncertain. The uncertainty had been a known gap in the operational picture. Known gaps are the honest acknowledgement that a strike group does not have perfect situational awareness. They are also, when they resolve into a contact 11 nautical miles away at 1 in the morning, the most uncomfortable category of intelligence update. The commanding officer of the Abraham Lincoln is briefed at 1:15 a.m. The briefing takes 90 seconds. The CO asks one question. The question is about the solution confidence. The answer is 83%. 83% means the fire control team is highly confident in the target's position and course, but is still refining the solution. 83% is not a number that authorizes a weapons engagement. It is a number that authorizes everything short of 1. At 1:17 a.m., the Virginia-class submarine begins moving to intercept. The attack submarine does not communicate this movement to the surface ships through any means that would compromise its own acoustic signature. The data link update is sufficient. The surface ships know the Virginia is moving. The Virginia knows where the contact is. The geometry speaks for itself. Aboard the P-8A, the tactical coordinator has been awake for 11 hours. The cockpit at 22,000 feet over the Arabian Sea is a world of screens and headsets, and the constant low noise of 4 turbofan engines that the crew has stopped hearing the way a person stops hearing their own heartbeat. The TACO watches the contact solution update on his display. The contact has not changed course. It has not accelerated. It is moving with the patience of a crew that believes it has not been detected. This belief is now 11 minutes out of date. The TACO deploys a second sonobuoy field at 1:18 a.m., offset from the first, designed to establish cross bearings that will sharpen the depth estimate. The submarine's depth matters. A torpedo engagement solution requires it. A prosecution that does not require weapons, the kind that ends with the submarine abandoning its approach, does not require it in the same way, but the TACO is building the complete picture regardless, because professional discipline means you build the complete picture even when you hope you will not need all of it. At 1:21 a.m., the contact changes behavior. The sonar processors aboard the destroyer and the Virginia detect a simultaneous change in the contact's acoustic signature. The frequency shift is small but unambiguous. The submarine has reduced speed. Not stopped. Reduced. From 6 knots to approximately 3. At 3 knots, a Kilo-class submarine is near the lower boundary of its acoustic detectability, quiet enough that the biological noise layer begins to compete seriously with its machinery signature. The crew of the submarine has detected something. Not, the analysis suggests, the precise source of detection, but something. An anomaly in the acoustic environment. A change in the texture of the water that has triggered a response from a crew trained to trust exactly that kind of instinct. The contact is going quiet. It is not withdrawing. It is going quiet and holding its course. This distinction matters enormously. A submarine that detects a prosecution and runs is a submarine that has abandoned its mission. A submarine that detects a prosecution and goes quiet while holding course is a submarine that has decided its mission is more important than the discovery of its position. It is a different calculation. It is the calculation of a crew that came here to do something specific and intends to do it regardless of the cost to its own concealment. The TAO aboard the Lincoln receives the update at 1:22 a.m. She adds one word to her situational assessment. The word is aggressive. She does not transmit it. She keeps it in the private accounting of her tactical judgment, where it contributes to a picture that is becoming, minute by minute, more defined in its implications. At 1:24 a.m., The Virginia is at a range of 4 nautical miles from the estimated contact position, running at 4 knots on a closing course, its own passive sonar now painting the Kilo's acoustic signature with a clarity that the surface ships cannot match. The Virginia's fire control party updates the solution. The contact is at a depth of 140 meters. The course is 228 degrees confirmed. The speed is now 2.9 knots. The solution confidence is 91%. 91%. The Virginia's commanding officer examines the solution with the specific focus of someone who is both authorized and reluctant to use what the solution authorizes. He is not reluctant because the threat is uncertain. He is reluctant because the decision to employ weapons against a submarine in international waters during an active but geographically bounded campaign carries implications that extend beyond the tactical situation and into the strategic one. He holds the weapon ready. He does not fire. He reports the solution to the surface force and requests guidance. The guidance comes from 5th Fleet in 4 minutes and 30 seconds, a response time that implies the decision was not made impulsively, but was not deliberated longer than the situation allowed. The guidance is, continue prosecution, do not fire unless the submarine takes an action consistent with imminent weapons employment. The submarine at 1:29 a.m. takes such an action. The Virginia's sonar detects a flood valve sequence. The sound is specific and unmistakable, the acoustic signature of a torpedo tube being flooded in preparation for a firing solution. It is not a launch. It is the step before the last step. It is the sound of a crew that has decided to prepare a weapon for use. The Virginia's CO does not wait for additional guidance. The rules of engagement are clear on this point. An adversary submarine that demonstrates imminent weapons employment intent has crossed the threshold. The CO authorizes a Mk-48A DCAP torpedo engagement at 1:29:41 a.m. 2 tubes are flooded. 2 solutions are running. The first, Mk-48, exits the forward torpedo room at 1:29:58 a.m. In the CIC of the Abraham Lincoln, the engagement notification arrives 17 seconds later. The TAO marks the timestamp. The watchstander to her left, who has been tracking the contact for 21 minutes without speaking, allows himself one breath that is slightly longer than the others. It is the only sound in the CIC that is not directly related to the operation of equipment. The Iranian Kilo does not run. This is the detail that will stay with every sonar operator and every fire control officer who reviews the engagement data in the days and weeks that follow. The submarine's speed does not increase after the Virginia fires. Its course does not change. For 9 seconds, the Kilo maintains 2.9 knots on course 228 degrees, as though its crew has not yet received the information that changes everything, as though the gap between the decision to flood the tubes and the consequence of that decision is still a space in which their mission remains viable. At 1:30:07 a.m., the Kilo increases speed. It goes to maximum emergency propulsion, a decision that the sonar operators will later describe as producing an acoustic signature unlike anything in the normal library, the sound of an electric propulsion system being asked to deliver everything it has in a single moment. The contact turns to the northeast, away from the carrier, away from the firing solution that had been building for an hour. The torpedo is behind it, and the mathematics of the situation are not negotiable. At 1:31:14 a.m., the first Mk-48 intercepts. The detonation produces an acoustic event that registers on every sonobuoy in the P-8A's field, on the towed array of the destroyer, on the hull-mounted sonar of the cruiser 12 miles away, and on the passive sonar of the Virginia, which is already turned away from the datum because the engagement is complete, and the next problem is the operational picture that the engagement has just changed. The detonation is felt in the destroyer's CIC as a low, slow pressure wave in the water. Not violent, not Hollywood, just a change in the medium that the sonar operators classify and annotate in the contact log with a precision that does not require adjectives. The contact drops off the tactical picture at 1:31:29 a.m. In the CIC of the Lincoln, the TAO updates the force-wide picture. The carrier's course does not change. The formation geometry does not change. The strike group is still on track, still on schedule, still moving on the heading that the operational plan requires. Somewhere to the northeast, 140 meters below the surface, there is wreckage and there is silence where there was recently machinery noise. The sea absorbs both with equal indifference. The P-8A drops a final sonobuoy at 1:33 a.m. to confirm the datum and detect any secondary contacts, any possibility that the Kilo had been operating in coordination with additional submerged assets that the initial detection had not resolved. The sonobuoy field listens for 4 minutes. The field hears the biological noise layer. It hears the distant commercial traffic to the south. It hears the strike group's own propulsion machinery, well known and already filtered. It hears nothing else. The TACO annotates his mission log at 1:38 a.m. The log entry is clinical and complete. It will become part of a prosecution record that ASW analysts will study for months, extracting lessons about the acoustic conditions in the northern Arabian Sea in mid-March, about the detection geometry of a towed array against a slow-moving Kilo in a moderate biological noise layer, about the decision timeline from initial contact to engagement authorization. The lessons will be real and will cost nothing additional to learn because the cost was paid tonight. The cost is not negligible. The Virginia has expended a Mk-48. The P-8A has expended 22 sonobuoys and has sufficient fuel for approximately 4 more hours of station time before it must return to base. The strike group has been operating with heightened ASW alert posture since 1:09 a.m., and the crew members who have been running sonar, managing the tactical picture, and maintaining the prosecution for the past 30 minutes are at a state of focused exhaustion that will not diminish simply because the immediate threat has been resolved. There may be another submarine. The P-8A barrier has gaps. The Strait of Hormuz transit is still 40 hours away, and the ASW picture in the northern Arabian Sea has just been demonstrated to contain surprises that intelligence did not predict. At 1:41 a.m., the Virginia resumes its station position ahead of the carrier, running at 4 knots, its sonar systems at full sensitivity, its crew at a level of alertness that will not decrease significantly for the remainder of the watch. The submarine's CO completes a brief situational report. It is transmitted through the data link in compressed format. The Lincoln's CIC receives it. The TAO reads it. She initiates a force-wide ASW alert that raises the sonar monitoring posture on every surface ship in the formation and directs the P-8A to expand its buoy field to the northwest. The bearing direction that the prosecution has just demonstrated was underscreened. The CO of the Abraham Lincoln is on the bridge at 1:44 a.m. He is aware of what happened below the surface in the last 36 minutes. He stands at the bridge windows and looks at the water. The water looks the same as it looked at midnight. Black, moving, unreadable from above. What changed in the last 36 minutes happened entirely in a world that is invisible from this position, a world of acoustic signals and bearing lines, and a torpedo running through dark water toward a submarine that had decided to close with the carrier that cannot be reached. He orders the course maintained. He orders the speed maintained. He goes below to the CIC. At 1:52 a.m., the P-8A's expanded buoy field completes its initial data cycle. The TACCO reviews the returns. The field is clean. No additional contacts. The northern Arabian Sea below the surface is producing only the sounds it is supposed to produce. The TACO notes this in his log. He does not conclude from it that there are no additional submarines. He concludes that the area screened by the current buoy field contains no detectable contacts. These are different statements. He keeps the distinction clear because professional discipline in ASW is fundamentally the discipline of knowing what you know and knowing what you do not know and never allowing the two categories to blur. The strike group moves southeast. The carrier's air wing has been conducting strike sorties against Iranian ballistic missile production infrastructure for 11 consecutive days. Tonight's sortie cycle resumes at 3 a.m. The pilots and weapons systems officers who will fly those sorties are sleeping now, or attempting to sleep, in the racks below the flight deck, where the noise of the carrier's propulsion system is a constant low frequency that the body learns, after 3 or 4 days at sea, to interpret as silence. They do not know about the contact. They will not be briefed on the contact before their sorties. The information would not change their mission. It would change the texture of their night, and there is no operational benefit to that change. The ASW operators know. The Virginia's crew knows. The P-8A crew knows. The CIC watch knows. They carry the knowledge in the professional container that Naval Service builds for exactly this purpose, the ability to hold the weight of what you know without allowing it to redistribute to the parts of the organization that are not positioned to use it. At 2:17 a.m., the watch rotates in the CIC. The incoming watch receives a brief. The outgoing TAO delivers it with precision and economy. She covers the contact, the prosecution, the engagement, the current picture. She covers the gaps in the current sonobuoy field in the P-8A's fuel state. She covers the force-wide ASW posture adjustment. The brief takes 7 minutes. She does not editorialize. She does not add to the brief anything that the incoming watch does not need in order to do their job. She transfers the picture cleanly, completely, and without ceremony. She goes aft. She sits in a chair in the passageway outside the CIC for approximately 90 seconds before standing up and moving toward the mess deck. She has been on watch for 9 hours. She is 31 years old, and she's been managing the tactical picture of a carrier strike group during an active combat campaign for 11 consecutive days. The corridor is lit with the red light of night operations. The ship moves under her feet with the slow, continuous motion of a hull displacing 100,000 tons of water in a sea state of 3. One Iranian Kilo-class submarine. 36 minutes from initial contact to engagement. 22 sonobuoys. 1 Mk-48 torpedo. 1 prosecution completed. 0 aircraft lost. 0 surface ships threatened. 0 yards of carrier track yielded. Below the sea, threats do not announce themselves. They move in the dark at 3 knots, patient and purposeful, toward a geometry that will give them what they came for. The only answer to that patience is a deeper patience, the kind built into a crew that has been watching the acoustic darkness for 18 hours and will watch it for 18 more, because the ocean does not pause when the contact disappears from the screen. The watch holds because the watchers do not sleep.